City of Apache Junction's City Council meeting on April 4th to order, and ask everyone to put their phones in silence. The invocation will be led by Councilmember Heck and the Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Mayor Schroeder.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of being able to gather together this evening to discuss city business. We ask that you give staff and council wisdom and clarity in its decision-making. We ask your blessing on the men and women who serve in our military around the world. Keep them safe. We also ask for your blessing on our first responders, including our police and fire departments and our EMS personnel. We are so grateful for their service and ask that you keep them safe as well. Thank you for the honor and privilege we have to serve the residents of this great city. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Here.
Vice Mayor Schroeder.
Here.
Councilmember Cross.
Here.
Councilmember Heck.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Nesser.
Present.
Councilmember Soller.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Consent agenda. As a reminder, all items under the consent agenda will be approved with one motion. If a council member wishes to remove an item for further discussion, the request must be made prior to approving the consent agenda and will be moved to new business. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that the consent agenda be accepted as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Councilmember Cross.
Yes.
Councilmember Heck.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder.
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser.
Yes.
Councilmember Soller.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Proclamations. I have 3 proclamations this evening, and I'm going to have some assistance in this. So, Mr. Heck, can you read the first one?
Certainly. Whereas the Civil Rights Act of 1968 and the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 prohibits discrimination in housing and declares it a national policy to provide for fair housing in the United States within constitutional limits. And whereas the principle of fair housing is not only national law and national policy, but a fundamental human concept and entitlement for all Americans. And whereas discriminatory housing practices undermine the strength and vitality of America and its people. And whereas April has traditionally been designated as Fair Housing Month in the United States. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Mayor, Chip Wilson, I do hereby proclaim April as Fair Housing Month.
Okay. Second one is International Dark Skies. Robert.
Designation of April 14th to the 22nd, 2023 as International Dark Skies Week. Whereas the beauty and wonder of a natural night sky is shared heritage of all humankind, and the experience of standing beneath a starry night skies inspires feelings of wonder and awe, encouraging and growing interest in science, nature, and whereas the Sonoran Desert is home to dozens of species that rely on undisturbed night environments to thrive, and whereas 80% of the world's population live under a dome of light pollution and may never experience the visual wonder of living under a dark sky. And whereas the Milky Way is hidden from more than 1/3 of humanity, including 60% of Europeans and nearly 80% of North Americans. And whereas light pollution has been scientifically proven to have economic and environmental consequences, which results in a significant negative impacts that contributes to diminish energy security. And whereas the International Dark Sky Association is a globally recognized authority on light pollution and has created International Dark Skies Week to raise awareness of light pollution and provide free education, resources, solutions to the public to encourage the protection of and enjoyment of dark skies. Now therefore, on behalf of Mayor Chip Wilson of the City of Apache Junction, I hereby proclaim week April 14th through the 22nd as International Dark Sky Week. And Liz, we will give this to you.
One quick thing.
Yes, you can.
So I just wanted to invite folks out. The library has a stargazing event every Tuesday night in April. And after this meeting, if you'd like to go over there, they've had a great turnout for that. The MGC hosted our stargazing event last week, and we had 42 people out for it. So we're definitely, and then we're getting close on our inventory and all of our things for our dark sky designations. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to read the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 9th to April 15th. Whereas the entire community can appreciate and recognize the professional police telecommunication officers who have impacted their lives of many. Whereas admire and professionals who dedicate their lives to helping others by answering calls every single day and carrying tremendous responsibility. Excuse me, my phone. Dictation, frustrations, and tears and smiles go on every day, one call at a time, making the world a better place. And whereas our country's police telecommunications officers are dedicated to meeting the demands placed on them in our rapid changing world, even if it means making personal sacrifices during these troubled times. And whereas police telecommunications officers are behind the scenes heroes who make difference in the lives of others. Now, therefore, I, Chip Wilson, Mayor of the City of Apache Junction, do hereby proclaim April 9th to April 15th as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Police Chief and company.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Appreciate this recognition for all of our dispatchers. Many times when people think of law enforcement, they think of this uniform and they think of the police officers, the men and women in uniform. But I'll tell you, in my experience and knowing how law enforcement works, the most important piece to this puzzle is the initial call for service. And that is the voice on the other end. And many times you will never know what that person looks like, their race, their religion, how long their hair is, but you will know that that voice brings you comfort and compassion and understanding and will get you help. Those are some of the most important people that start the process in the criminal justice system, if that initial call. So recognizing them and understand the importance of their job, which is extremely difficult, is exceptional. And I can tell you, having worked in another agency, we are very blessed with the dispatchers that we have. With our communications manager, Jessica Kelly, that was up here, does a phenomenal job with our employees, and all of our dispatchers that we have here in Apache Junction are some of the best, top-notch quality people. So thank you very much, Mayor, members of council.
Mayor?
Thanks, Chief.
And also want to say a personal thank you as well for all that they do.
Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you to them too. They are the unseen heroes. They're up there every day making sure officers are safe, making sure the community's safe, and they don't get the recognition they properly deserve because they're never seen. But they are an integral part of law enforcement, and thank you very much for what you do.
Regional Intergovernmental Affairs. Any updates?
Mayor,
Yes.
as a lot of people know, there was a horrific accident at Lost Dutchman and Highway 88 this past weekend. Word had it for quite some time after the accident that the person was most likely going to die from injuries. But miraculously, word came down today that she successfully made it through surgery, and the doctors are very optimistic that she's going to survive. The reason why I bring this up is that road is controlled by ADOT. It's not controlled by Apache Junction. And we need to do everything we can to encourage ADOT to fix that intersection, get us a roundabout put in right there. It's an ideal location, desperately needed. There's constantly accidents there, and hopefully we can get that roundabout in sometime before we have another bad accident, or worse yet, a fatality. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bryant Powell, City Manager. And following up on that, we will ask our city engineer to check in with ADOT and provide us a report on what the latest is on the study out there.
Great, thanks.
Your Honor, this last week, many of you and many of our staff were invited to a grand opening to the D.R. Horton homes. It wasn't a it wasn't an official start, but they are getting their models complete, and this is the single biggest project that's going on in the city. They already have 35 homeowners that have started the process for moving to be our newest citizens and newest neighbors in the city of Apache Junction, receiving all the great services that are here. Our staff are super excited to see it at this point. We appreciate all your support in coming out at that time, and we'll keep you posted as time goes. They pulled over about 75 permits, and they're off and running. Now, this is the side that's closer west of Ironwood. Brookfield is the other developer on the east side of Ironwood, and they're also working through their final plat, and then probably about 6 months, 9 months behind this group. And then as part of my report this last week, our Apache Junction Little League season is off and running through their opening ceremonies. And I was invited this year to throw the first pitch, and it was really neat to see our youth out there, see our field, see Dave, our great parks guy that keeps this facility looking and maintaining it in wonderful shape. And then also Riley, who helps program. Liz and her team does such a great work. This is an organization that is geographically based. Many of our organizations now have free roam, go where you want. If things don't work out, I quit and go somewhere else. But not with the Little League organization, international. Little League requires you show your utility bill, you live in the city. And so they gave me the microphone, and of course, as a city manager, I brought that up. And I said, you are playing with the kids you'll play with in your neighborhood. They're the ones that are in your society, your community, your family, your city family. And so, if I've noticed over time, as people recognize that and recognize the great work, they seem to start to dig deeper roots in this great city. And so just wanted to know that's off and running. And again, the facilities here were great, but also they are at Prospector, where there's a couple softball teams, and of course our Little League will be out there. Other than that, I'd like to turn it to Al for his current events.
Good evening, everyone. Al Bravo, Public Information Officer for the City of Apache Junction. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Wilson and members of the City Council. A couple of things to wrap up from the last couple of weeks and looking ahead as well. A great time of the year, of course, to be in the City of Apache Junction. We have wonderful events going on, not the least of which, if you weren't around on Saturday, was Earth Day at Earth Park at Horizon Health and Wellness. We once again released thousands of ladybugs. It's a really fun little event that goes on every year. It now has come back, I think, in in full-fledged force at Earth Park. Anybody who came by, we really appreciate you taking part in Earth Day. Also at the same time was Library Con. This is an annual event that the library has done, bringing together folks who love all the different parts of the library, literature and otherwise, pop culture and whatnot. Yes, there's several characters in that picture. I couldn't even tell you who all of them are. And I have children too, so there you go. But a great day had by all that at the library, a very, very popular event that I'm sure the library folks would tell you all about. Now, stuff that's coming up. This Saturday is Easter egg hunt day at Prospector Park. Remember, we do an Easter egg hunt by ages, starts at 9 in the morning. You can see all of this information, of course, on the city website, as well as on the parks page, and of course, through their social media sites as well. You will also see on the homepage all the other things that are going on in the month of April. There are several more things coming up. April Pools Day is April the 22nd, where we open the pool, and it is a very, very important water safety day right here in the city. We should make sure everybody knows that beginning next week and for about 5 weeks, the dog park will be closed for maintenance. If you're looking for some details on that, you can go to the city website /dog park. That'll tell you that. It's also on the city homepage. So if you're looking for any information, and this is the best time of the year to be able to do some of this much needed maintenance at the dog park. So that's happening beginning on April 10th. On April 15th, which is another Saturday away, our friend, the good chief behind me here, is going to bring a victory over the fire department. Superstition Fire and Apache Junction Police are facing off in their Battle of the Badges in an event for standupaj.org. So make sure that you make time for that. Again, Prospector Park at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I want to mention this, talking about the chief and talking about his department. They brought back a tradition that has not been done for quite some time. From what I understand is something like 17 years since this has happened. But last Wednesday, the police rank and file passed their commanders in a uniform inspection, and you can see part of it in the picture up on the screen right now. It is a really neat way to remind everyone that our officers are professional and want to give their best foot forward in the community, and this is one way that we can ensure that by inspecting their uniforms. And I guess it's going to be is it an annual thing, Chief? There you go. We're going to keep seeing it. Anybody see the cougar this week? Yep. That one's from the mayor's house. If you are around, actually, if you're around about maybe half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago, you could have seen it. We're just about getting to that point of the year where it'll start to go away again. But it's for about a week we get to see that cougar up on the mountain at sunset, and maybe a little bit at the end of the in the fall as well. A reminder that you can always get all the information you need for city stuff on the city's homepage, and you can subscribe to the city newsletter by going to apachejunction.az.gov/newsletter. Now, before we're all done, I also know that the mayor did get a chance to take part in a ceremony over at Mountain View Cemetery for the marking of the anniversary of Vietnam War veterans, and so I know the mayor did want to at least touch base on what happened there.
Yeah, it was a real good turnout in the number of people that were there, but it was an opportunity for several people to include, even the governor was there to speak as well, but and I spoke as well. They gave me, originally they had told me I could have 10 minutes, and then they cut me down to 4 minutes, so it was a quick little short speech from me. And I got it done in 3.5 minutes, so I did good. But it was an opportunity to recognize the veterans from Vietnam that came back. And of course, when we came back during that period of time, it was a time when everybody kind of hid their, I'll say, their service that they did. And it's preceding the actual 50th anniversary of the, what they call the end of the conflict, and of course the fall of Saigon as well. But we figured it out. It was 50 years ago in March of 1975, or 73, when the battles in Vietnam had stopped. So it's it's been a while. And it's, you know, we want to make sure that we pass the information on and as to what we did and, you know, basically and how a lot of our military people were treated, and we don't want to repeat that again. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would like to say, because I worked that event as a volunteer, and I'd like to say to you, and I believe that Peter agrees with me, that you were the highlight of the people who actually spoke to our veterans.
Oh.
Not only from the top at the microphone, but you also spoke to the veterans that were there, and it was very much appreciated throughout that crowd, and I personally thank you.
I concur completely.
Thank you.
And with that, that concludes our report for announcements on April the 4th, 2023.
And notice what the bird has got, got in its beak.
Our illustrious Matthew McNulty caught that this weekend. It's kind of a neat little picture there right outside City Hall.
Unless you're the lizard.
Yeah, he doesn't agree.
Exactly.
Okay, consideration, appreciation for a new Series 10 beer and wine liquor license for cigar, smoke, and vape located at 1000 West Apache Trail. Jennifer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before City Council tonight is a Series 10 beer and wine liquor license application from the Cigar, Smoke, and Vape Shop. It is located just west of North Thunderbird Drive, across from Dutch Bros Coffee Shop. A Series 10 license is not a quota license, but it is a non-transferable license. It is strictly for off-sale retail purchase of liquor, beer and wine only. They are to be taken off premise for consumption. The city received the application on February 27th, and the store was posted in accordance with state law announcing the public hearing tonight. We have met our 20-day posting requirement, and we are within our 60-day processing time frame. Communications with our zoning and safety divisions have been received. All are recommending approval. There is a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Department that restriping of the parking lot occur at least with one ADA-compliant accessible parking space and a loading zone be delineated on the south side of the building. The applicant is here this evening if you have any questions, and this is for a public hearing tonight.
Would the applicant like to speak? Don't see him. Okay. Any discussion among council? I don't see everybody jumping up and down. Would the public, anyone from the public like to speak on this? And I don't see any movement, so I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mayor?
Yes.
I move that the application for the new Series 10 beer, wine store, liquor store license and cigar, smoke, and vape located at 1000 West Apache Trail, number 101, be recommended for approval to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licensing and Control.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Heck,
Yes.
Councilmember Soller,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Cross,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have no old business this evening. New business, presentation, discussion of the state of the court. Judge Lasota.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Judge Lasota from the Municipal Court. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint presentation with you. This is just basic summary of my qualifications, including accounting degree and extensive budgetary experience, which gives me some experience dealing with budgetary issues at the court. And I've been the presiding judge in Cottonwood for 10 years, so I was obviously doing budgets at that point in time. So when I came here, one thing I decided to do right away was to take a look at everything throughout the court system about what the expenses were and what the positions and employment of staffers were, to see what we really needed and what we didn't need. Because there were several pending positions that before I came here they were looking to fill, and I'll go through this a little bit more detail later, but several positions I've cut because I decided we didn't need those, and we needed to have the city spending the money on those particular positions to be efficient with the court. This is just our organizational chart. You know, at the top, say the top 6 that are all there, everybody has extensive experience. You know, I have 19 years experience now as a judge. Judge McVeigh had 20 years experience as a Maricopa County Superior Court judge. Reagan Appello, our court administrator, she came to us just last year. She has several years experience in Bisbee as a court administrator. We're lucky to have Elvia Carino as our management consultant. She comes up to us from Tucson once a week. She used to be the head of the consolidated courts down in Tucson, so she's used to running a lot of different courts with a lot of different employees, and she's been helping improve our court, and she has more ideas for helping us improve into the future. The senior clerks that are listed there too, both of those have been with us for approximately 25 years. And then all the ones in the bottom 2 rows are all new employees, most of all of whom are Apache Junction residents, or they live close by. We decided to make this crew, you know, people that live close by, that want to be in this city, that want to stay with the city long term, not people that are just kind of bouncing in and out of jobs with the court. So we're proud of everybody we have at the court right now too. You know, so this is what I talked about before about looking at different positions and trying to save the city substantial sums of money. I'll go over that in just a little bit here. Now, this is cost savings for vacant positions. The judicial administrative assistant position, you know, we haven't filled that this year. That person had to leave last year, so it was not filled the last part of last year, and I'm anticipating that we're not going to have that position filled until, say, the summer of next year with the start of the new fiscal year. So savings on that position between salary and benefits would be $138,000 that we've saved the city on this. The management analyst position has not been filled since I've been here, so that's 2 years, plus we're not going to fill it until at least July of next year. If we do fill it right away, that's the savings to the city of $227,000. We had a court security coordinator. For some reason, they thought they needed to hire before I came here, they thought they needed to hire a full-time security person, not to work the security coming into the building, but to sit in an office and make recommendations as to what security needs were of the court. And they were going to pay them that person $50,000 a year. So I said no to that position. So for the past 2 years, and then this is computing, if you would have had that position 10 years into the future, the total savings to the city are $615,000. The community service and compliance coordinator, I'll go through a little bit more detail about community service later, but this was a position that wasn't needed. So the savings over the past 2 years, plus anticipated savings over the next 10 years, will save the city $711,000. And they had court compliance surveillance manager that we don't have the need for. That was going to cost $711,000. They wanted to have, before I came here, 2 part-time bailiffs, which I decided we needed more just the court staffers as opposed to having bailiffs who wouldn't have all the training that the court staffers have as far as clerks. So those 2 positions would have cost us $504,000 for the past 2 years plus the next 10 years. And a community service supervisor's 2 part-times. When I came here, community service consisted of, if you came to the court on Monday through Thursday between 9 and 12 in the morning, they'd hand you a broom or a shovel and send you on your way and say, do some sweeping of the sidewalk out back and that type of thing, not be supervised, and they'd get some hours. Now, everybody else wasn't really able to do that because anybody that had a job or couldn't make it here wasn't able to do that, but we were gonna have all these different supervisors supervising these people, which we don't need, and I'll go into more detail with the community service later about how we're getting community service done now. But those positions would have cost us through 10 years from now, $504,000. So just basically what I've saved so far, plus what the anticipated savings are over the next 10 years, that saves the city $3.4 million that we don't need to spend. And I'm not going to spend the city's money on positions that we don't need it for. When I first came here, we started a criminal justice coordinating committee. This is something I started up in Cottonwood. The members include, myself and the associate magistrate, the court administrator. We have a mental health coordinator that's staffed with our court now. The city prosecutor, the homeless advocate from Genesis, mental health agency representatives from Horizon and other agencies. We have police commanders, including some who are here this evening, and the court appointed attorneys. The purpose of this group is to act as a management team regarding major issues at the court. It gives all parties to the court proceedings a seat at the table of justice. They all have the right to give any opinions, any input, any constructive criticism, and I invite constructive criticism as well if they think that I'm doing something wrong or the court's doing something wrong and there's something that needs improvement. We encourage that in this meetings as well too, as well as this group is to help form any new major projects at the court, which I'll go through in just a minute about the homeless and mental health court. We have meetings at least quarterly, and this has been very successful so far. The homeless mental health court is something I understood that we were dealing with these type of issues before I came here, plus during the early part of my time, but it became a need to have a full homeless and mental health court. So once a month we have a session where we staff it with mental health coordinators from the different agencies, and as well as the prosecutor, myself, and the public defenders about what to do with different individuals who are in the homeless and mental health court. A lot of the homeless have mental health issues, they're SMI, and it's also people that are not homeless as well that have mental health issues that was what contributed to their offenses being caused, we believe. And we're trying to keep people from reoccurring and to try to rehabilitate these individuals. So far, we've been very successful. We've, out of 15 people that we have in the program right now, one has committed one new minor offense, and that was before the person even started getting counseling. So, there's no disasters on people that we've been unsuccessful with, and everybody that's been into the program, we have them all into counseling. They're all getting the treatment that they need. Many of them are on medications for the first time in many years that really needed to be on medications, and they're not reoffending, which is an important part of this. Plus, we're getting them rehabilitated in the long run. Court-appointed attorneys are appointed to represent these defendants at no cost to the defendants. That doesn't really cost the city because we're paying them salaries anyway. So, they're representing all the people that come in at no cost to them, because we don't want to do anything to preclude people from participation in the mental health court. Excuse me. So defendants initially attend court monthly and then every other month. Some of them that are doing well and they're doing all their counseling that they're supposed to, and some are going a couple times a week and they're doing everything that's expected of them. They're on their medications, they're doing well. The counselors indicate they're doing well. We'll have them come every 2 months instead of every month. So, they start out at 1 month intervals to start with, and then they go to 2 months. If they're successful over a period of 6 months, the prosecutors are going to move to dismiss the charges against them. So they have that incentive to stay with the program and to be successful. And my experience in Cotton was that even after charges were dismissed on individuals, once we got them into the programs, most of them will be staying with their counseling on an ongoing basis even afterwards. So how did they get into specialty court? The judges can decide who goes into the mental health and homeless court. The city attorney can request that someone get placed into the court. And by motion of court-appointed attorneys, they can make motions. And I've never seen a case where the court-appointed attorneys have moved to have somebody admitted into court where the prosecutor didn't agree with that position as well. So everybody's position and input that's in the program, their opinions as to who should be in the program are respected. I've talked about how they're doing so far in the program, and we have a lot of success. As indicated, no court is ever going to have 100% success, but this court is very successful in meeting its goals so far. These kind of courts, if you get 50% success rates, you're doing good, and we're doing much better than that. So hopefully we can keep it up over time. Obviously, we're going to have a failure here and there, because we're not going to be able to be successful on everything, because a lot depends on the defendants and their particular mental health issues and what kind of things are going on in their lives as well, too. So we receive regular reports on progress from defendants. We don't get into what all their personal issues are that they discuss with their counselors, but the counselors do let us know, that they're attending, that they're staying on their medications, that they're, and whether or not they need, to get a little bit of an extra push from the court to try to make sure that they make more of their sessions, that type of thing. So, we all get told what the status of people are, and during our status conferences at 8 o'clock in the morning every month, where we have that once a month, and then we meet with the defendants individually afterwards. So, You know, I'm there to give props to the defendants for their successes and try to encourage them to continue with their successes. And then, you know, we try to reinforce the importance of compliance too. If they start to falter, we can, you know, remind them that they're going to get their case dismissed when it's over with, and about how, you know, they've been able to stay out of trouble with it so far and how they need to continue with it. There's different things that we need to discuss with them at those type of meetings. We've also tried to learn from other agencies in court as well. So we've sent our court administrator and our mental health coordinator, who's also a clerk, to Mason Municipal Court to observe their staffing process in court proceedings, to learn new ideas as to how to successfully run the court over the long haul. So we've skimmed some forms from them, and we've learned some different ideas about how to successfully run a mental health court that's coming into play in our court as well too. We're going to continue to observe other courts in the future. I think there's a plan for a road trip to Glendale to see how they're doing things, and then Phoenix does a lot of these type of cases as well too. So we're going to have continuing education on behalf of myself, our court administrator, and our mental health coordinator to make sure we keep learning everything we need to learn as to how to keep improving this court as much as possible. The National Judicial Task Force to examine state courts' response to mental illness, as a division of the National Center for State Courts, you know, this is their position. The court should deflect and divert individuals with mental health issues, and that's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing in this case. Other issues, you know, we're now in compliance with Supreme Court monthly reporting. That wasn't being done before I came here. Including a lot of state remittance revenue and statistical reporting. Those things are all caught up now and are all being done on a regular basis. We've implemented improvements in case flow management to deal with the extensive number of new cases that we're getting. We had a huge courthouse cleanup and a lot of purging of old cases. You know, we went from a paper court to a paperless court, but we still had hundreds of files that were still around. So when we had our recent city cleanup, you know, that was one of the things we did, was purging all those old cases and getting those destroyed and shredded, and doing cleanup within the court itself, getting rid of old filing cabinets that were no longer necessary. So our court staff even won the Golden Duster Award from the city program, you know, and being the best agency within the city to, as far as the cleanup, right?
Yes,
We
sir.
got, this gentleman got to give us the award too. So that's even getting framed. He's putting a frame in.
You can put in a frame.
Yeah, he's putting a frame for it, just to remind everybody.
That's good.
And so we have multiple new staff members. So, you know, there's an extra room that was being used for other purposes. We're now changing that into a court clerk area. So there's 4 new staff cubicles going into there. So we're doing all kinds of coordinating with IT and other departments to make sure that that's getting done. So within the next month or so, we should have everybody all set up at their new desks with everything. We used to be running just one courtroom. We're so busy now that we're running 2 courtrooms. So both myself and our part-time judge, Judge McVeigh, you know, we're keeping both of those courtrooms running all the time that we have Judge McVeigh. He's in the smaller courtroom most of the time on the 2 days that he's here, and then I'm running the big courtroom every day, and it's running every day, all day long. You know, we're keeping pretty busy. We obtained an additional conflict attorney because some cases have more than 2 defendants on a case. So on cases that there's a 3rd defendant where there's a conflict of interest, we've gotten an additional conflict attorney. We were able to get that person for just $250 per case. So that person's helping us out if we ever have a case that needs to have an extra attorney on. We're going to get her at an inexpensive rate to help us out to make sure that we get coverage for all the different defendants on certain cases. We've added security cameras in the 2nd courtroom. We're doing courthouse security assessments that weren't done before that we needed to get done. And then even things like the x-ray machine, it was needing magnetometer radiation testing and state registration. That wasn't done before I came here. That's now being done and completed and up to date. You know, we've been placing a major emphasis on court customer service since I've came here. That's an important part of the role of everybody in the court. So that's a big part of our directives to everyone now. You know, prior to this administration, court clerks who were hired who had no intent or desire to stay long-term We'd have people that say, oh, I want to be a police officer within the next few months, or I'm going to go to law school next year. What we've done is we've hired people that tell us that they want this as a career move, that Apache Junction is the place that they want to be, and that they want to stay with this court long-term. And that's the people that we've hired, and that's the emphasis that we're going to have going on into the future too. Now, before there was not much in the way of training for the clerks. Now we have extensive training to make sure all the court clerks provide the best service possible for everyone who enters the court building or deals with the court from afar. To assist victims, we installed a computer in the court lobby that allows people that don't have computers at home, that you know, the new program for orders of protection requires that they be in type form within the program. So we now have that computer where they can just come in. It's dedicated only for that purpose. People can't come in and look at the internet or whatever. They get to come and they get to do up their petitions on that computer. The other good thing is before, when there was just paper petitions, if things needed to be changed or there needed to be additional things added to the petition in order for a court to be able to grant it, defendants would have to, or plaintiffs would have to go away. They'd have to come back on another day. They'd be told, oh, you have to go home and fix it and come back. Now they can just go to the computer, make the changes, amend their petition, and then see a judge right away. So if they've taken the afternoon off to try to get their petition, no longer do they have to take another afternoon off to come back on another date. They get to see us that same afternoon, so we can try to make sure that if they're entitled to an order of protection or injunction against harassment, they're going to leave the court with it that same afternoon or same morning that they come. We've sent several clerks to civil traffic hearing officer school. They're not going to be doing hearings, but what it allows is them to be able to give better customer service at the windows. Before, you used to have a judge to look at people's insurance and say, oh, you were insured at the time, I'm going to dismiss your no insurance charge. Well, we don't need to have people come to court at 10 o'clock and be told, oh, you have to come back at 1:30, or oh, you have to come back at 8:30 the next day on our walk-in docket. Now, these clerks who are appointed as civil traffic hearing officers who have gone to school for that as well, they can deal with the person directly right there at the court and get their case done immediately, so they don't have to come back. And these are just for minor things that don't require them to have to make major decisions, such as at a trial. It's just simple things about getting the required documentation that they need to see, or proof that they've gotten their registration renewed, things like that, and they get it taken care of, and they don't have to wait for a judge, and they can be on their way and get back to work or whatever they need to get back to. This is what I was just talking about there. Before, phone calls weren't always answered properly. Before I came here, we've gotten it to where we require that phone calls get promptly answered or messages promptly returned. Correspondence is now quickly addressed by staff and judges. I see those things every day, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting there doing orders and sending things back to clerks so that they can send rulings on motions that people have made the day before, so that they can get their rulings on the cases. Before, there wasn't really any new employee trainings being done before I came here. The county told us that there was only 2 incidences in the past 20-something years that people were sent to them for training. So now, with my arrival, every new court clerk that gets hired goes for the extra training at Superior Court, where they teach people about the operating system, about judicial ethics, and about how to do their jobs in a more efficient fashion. Additionally, our management consultant, Elvia Carino, she's helping train everybody. Before I came here too, there was no binders or anything with any forms telling people what to do on certain cases. They have to try to remember what they were taught during their first month of training. Now, if you forget how to do something, now there's policies and procedures for every type of matter that they need to handle, and it's in binders, and it's there, and it's handy, and we don't have to worry about them not following the proper steps in cases. The hiring of a part-time management consultant has helped analyze staffing and customer service needs, to balance out what type of cases different employees should be handling, how much of certain things they should be handling, and what things need to be given off to somebody else to try to equalize the workload so that all the employees feel like they're being treated fairly as far as the type of workloads they have at the court too. Before I came here, there was a lot of attitude problems with staff towards others, both in and out of the court. We've eliminated that. We have all court employees are expected to have excellent attitudes towards court customers, fellow employees, and employees within the city. And that's something that's required of everybody from the top down in our court. Community service. So when I first interviewed for this position, I know there was multiple council members that wanted to make sure and made me promise that I wasn't going to get rid of community service. And I made that promise, and I haven't gotten rid of it. And I told you guys I would look at it and see how it could be made better. And I did that, and I've made it better. And so what we do now is, instead of having those community service director positions to supervise people handing brooms to people on 9 to 12 on Monday through Thursday, now people can do community service anywhere within the state. They can do it at any 501c3 nonprofit corporation. They can do it at any church or place of worship. We also have a tour of flyers given out for the code enforcement with the city, and as an incentive to try to get people to do extra hours with the city. Instead of for every hour that they do, they get credit for an hour and a half worth of community service, which is at $14 an hour, which is the statutory rate. So those people that work for the city basically make $21 an hour if they help code enforcement do cleanups on properties. As indicated, it's the $14 an hour. The 501c3 corporations, we give them community service forms so they can document it. All hours are verified by a senior clerk. We call and verify that those hours are done properly, and we make sure that it is a 501c3 corporation. If someone's not sure about whether or not something qualifies, all they have to do is call us and ask us, and this has been a very successful program. People that aren't from Apache Junction, that have other cities or counties that they live in, we allow them to do community service in those locations as well too. And this is basically for people that can't afford to pay those fines. So instead of trying to punish them and give them jail time because they're not paying their fines, which the city has to pay for the jail costs, this gives them a chance to pay off their debt to the city with their fines by being able to do the community service. And as I remember saying from my interview, you can't get blood from a stone, and you can't. So, but we can get community service out of people that don't have jobs, and even people who are disabled will allow them to do work too. If we've had people in wheelchairs that can't do much else, but we allow them to come to the city, and they're allowed to do paper shredding. That allows them to do some hours here and there too, and to get all their hours done. This first part is just talking about the hour and a half credit that goes to the city programs. And the next slide is basically what's happened since we started this in October of 2021. So, the first column talks about the number of defendants that turned in hours that month. How many hours were completed at outside agencies, how many within city departments. The sheet that I gave you, it's on the bottom, it actually increased things for March. So for March, the numbers end up being 24 defendants, 492.75 hours completed at outside agencies, and 40.5 hours completed within city departments. A lot of these people who do community service are homeless that don't have jobs. A lot of them are doing their work over at the Genesis Project, and they're allowed to get some extra credit on theirs as well too when they do the heavier work. She does a lot of work, Trinity over at Genesis, when there's the storms and there's a lot of cleanup in the desert, that type of thing. So people that help her with that type of thing, they're able to get some extra credit on their community service. And there's been people who come in with 80 hours from Genesis. So we're sending a lot of people over to Genesis. I mean, we're not making people go to any particular agency. We're letting them choose what agency they want to. But the homeless in particular are going to Genesis, and they're benefiting quite a bit from the community service hours that are being done that truly benefit the community. Should be noted the city does not really lose money because these people wouldn't be paying anyway. So it's done by people who don't have the funds to pay all of their fines. So instead of sentencing people to jail sentences at city expense for not paying fines, this allows people to pay their debts to society and stay right with the law. And this program's been very successful on the whole, as you can see by the numbers of hours, which included just since October of 2021, 4,484 hours, including 329 at city agencies. That's quite a bit. And that's much more than what was being done before I came here. So I think this program's successful. And as I indicated, now we're not having to punish people by giving them jail sentences for not paying their fines. That saves the city money at $82, $84 a day in jail costs that we're not having to pay because they're doing community service instead of being punished for not paying their fines. And we have management training programs we put into place for our clerks. Before, there was no training programs whatsoever. It was just if an opening came open, they'd hire somebody for it and then try to train them from there. We're doing this from the ground floor up, but with the clerks that we have now, we're building them up to where they're going to be on tracks to be managers in the future. So the ones we know are going to be able to move up when our senior clerks who are getting ready to retire within a couple of years, when those positions open up, they're going to be trained and ready to step into those positions. So, when I first started as a judge, I went to the Arizona Court Supervisor Program, the Arizona Court Manager Program, and the Arizona Court Executive Program. Those are all essential to running a court. And our court administrator, Reagan Appello, is also graduated of the Court Manager Program, and then she's going to start the Court Executive Program. Elvia Carino is a graduate of the Arizona Court Manager Program and the Arizona Court Executive Program. And then we have 3 clerks right now who are doing their Arizona Court Supervisor training. It's all free, provided by the Administrative Office of the Courts from the Arizona Supreme Court. And then after they complete their Arizona Court Supervisor training, they're also going to be able to step into Arizona Court Manager training. When those positions open up in a couple of years, they're going to have the Arizona Court Supervisor and the Arizona Court Manager training completed, and they're going to be ready to step on those jobs, and they're going to have all the knowledge and education that they need to perform in those positions. So future projects, the court website, we're going to expand on the content of the information provided. We're going to have a main page with emergency public announcement pages for if COVID type things hit us again in the future. We're going to adding forms and translated forms and translated into Spanish as well. And we're going to try to improve the communication of online services available. E-warrants is a new program that we're partnering with the police department on as well. So Apache Junction warrants will be processed electronically. Before they were all paper, and then they'd have to be sent over to the police department and have to have things sent back to us, that type of thing. Now warrants are going to be issued in real time. Warrants will be issued, served, and quashed or entered into a centralized system, which the Apache Junction Police Department already has in place. So we're going to be tying in with that. And then we're going to get training and support by the Arizona Supreme Court. So basically instantaneously when a warrant gets issued or quashed, that's going to get put into the system, and immediately it goes to the police department, and there's no chance of someone getting arrested because things took a day or two for things to get over about a warrant being quashed. That way the police will have that information immediately, and if a warrant is issued, they'll have that information immediately as well too. So if they have contact with the defendant that needs to get arrested, then that person doesn't slip because the warrant hasn't made it over to the police department yet. So everything we're trying to do with being paperless and trying to be more efficient, this is the type of thing that we're doing at the court and working with the public, with PD as well. This is our filing and termination, which is cases completed trends. So as you can see, things kind of dipped down with COVID to where there was about 5699 cases in fiscal year 2020. It came up a little bit in 2021, and then now they're shooting up with the number of cases that are going way up. We've got 7,419 cases that have been filed in fiscal year 2022. That's projected, as indicated at the top, to go up to 8,190 for fiscal year 2023 as well. So things are shooting up. There's a lot of enforcement with the special enforcement zone going on in Ironwood that brings a lot of cases into the court. There's a lot more enforcement going on domestic violence cases and certain other kind of cases nowadays, to where people that were previously just talked to are now getting brought into the court system on cases that are appropriate. So the numbers keep going up, and it's only going to keep going up once you keep adding those new houses in. So, but that's the importance of of being fully staffed and having everybody trained and having people with the management training they need to make sure that we're able to handle these numbers as they come into the court. This is just statistical information. The heavy red indicates cases that are done within 60 days. The orange right above it shows cases done within 90 days. You know, we're basically at 99.5% of all of our civil traffic cases are getting handled within 60 days. So we're keeping things moving along so that there isn't any delay in getting these cases resolved. This is on criminal time disposition, so basically 100% of our cases are getting done within the 90 days now. You know, the number of cases done within 60 days is down a little bit because we have such a heavy volume, and we're trying to deal with the heavy volume. And once we get all the staff trained and implemented to deal with that, we're going to be able to get that number back up to get more cases done within 60 days. But, you know, we're doing excellent to keep things done within 90 days on basically 100% of our cases on criminal cases. This is just the collections of fines. Obviously, this doesn't all go to the city. Some goes to surcharges that goes to administrative office of the court. Some goes to clean elections funds, that type of thing. But you can see the numbers are continually going up. From fiscal year 2019, it's had a big jump of a couple $100,000 in fiscal year 2022. And we expect it to be up substantially from that for fiscal year 2023 as well. And that's not because we're just raising the fines or anything on the cases that we have. It's that we're doing a better job than from before I came here about collecting on cases and making sure that people are held accountable, bringing them to court on orders to show cause as to why they aren't paying their fines when they're not paying their fines, doing everything we can to try to keep things to where people pay what they need to pay, giving them the options to do community service when they need to. But even with all that community service hours, you can see our numbers are still going up substantially on the amount of money that we're collecting and bringing in as revenues for the city and for the state. This is just me. This is, you know, like number of calendar days. If you work 7 days a week from when I started here, July 12th to December 31st of last year, there was 568 calendar days. I've worked 550 of them. I work 7 days a week. I'm doing jail court on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as well as during the week, all week as well too. So the number of calendar days I've worked since I started here is 97%. I've only taken 10 hours of birthday hours. I haven't taken any sick or vacation time because I've been trying to get this court squared away and getting everything dialed into where it needs to be for the future. You know, my contract only requires 40 hours a week, but so that would be 2,080 hours. I've worked 4,695 hours according to Kronos during that time period, which is an average of 90 hours a week. So
That's a lot.
that's what I put in. So, and thank you for your continued support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Any discussion from the council?
Your Honor.
Yes.
It's not quite a question, Your Honor. It's, so the mayor, myself, and Councilmember Nesser were the three last that when you were hired on. And if I remember correctly, we were north of 20 applicants. And to see what you've done to the courts, you've really made some strides in the short amount of time you were here. And I really feel like we made the right decision in hiring you. And I also want to say I do appreciate your conscious effort to staff our courts with Apache Junction residents. I think that's a great idea.
Everybody pretty much is all within 12 minutes of the court now. You don't have to worry about it running late too much. One person's in Tempe, but everybody else is all within 12 minutes of the court. And I promise you guys, I was here because I wanted to be in this area. I've moved, I'm within 12 minutes of this court too.
It gives you a sense of community.
So everybody from the top down are people who want to be working at this court, want to be serving Apache Junction, and that's the way we want to keep it going in the future. So we appreciate all of your efforts to try to help make sure employees are treated right in the city. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Sir, I just want to say thank you. You've done a wonderful job moving the Apache Junction City Court forward into the future. But I really want to thank you for the mental health and drug court and the community service aspect. We always have to remember we're dealing with human beings. And you take that into consideration. You can't arrest yourself out of a lot of things. If we can get them into certain programs or certain ways to get help, and they can get back on their feet and get back to being functional in our society, that is a win for everybody. And mental health and drug court and community service do that. It helps the people that need it the most. And hopefully we can save more people, and you're doing a wonderful job with that. Thank you.
And both those programs cost the city nothing. It's all just for the work that we're doing within the court. So, it doesn't cost us anything, and we're proud of what we're accomplishing. But and we thank you all for your support. Was there any other questions?
Yeah, Mayor,
Yes.
I think you're doing an excellent job. It's, I hear some moaning and groaning behind the scenes sometimes that your zero tolerance for, the excuses for why they have to do 20 plus in a 25 zone or a 35 zone. And I think the word's getting out. Don't get a ticket in AJ.
The good thing
Kudos, because we get, I drive the highway every day, and when I get passed by semis doing 20 plus over the speed limit, it scares the heck out of people. And, a good tough judge like yourself makes a difference. So thank you.
Things like the accident that you talked about earlier, and a lot of the accidents have been happening. Those scare the bejeebers out of me too, and I'm trying to do what I can. And I take a position, it's not a special enforcement zone unless you're enforcing it, right? I mean, if you're just letting people get off the hook 40 miles an hour over, and you get to go to driving school, and then you get to go ahead and do it the next year, that's not really keeping people from doing it. But, the good thing is too, is to the credit of Apache Junction residents, most of the tickets are coming for people from Santan and Queen Creek and that type of thing. So people from Apache Junction are learning. Maybe they know where the speed traps are, but at least they're not the ones that are driving through our cities at 95 miles an hour. So thank you to the Apache Junction residents as well.
Peter?
Thank you all for your attention. Was there anything else?
Your Honor,
Yes.
Your Honor, there are a lot of your honors here. Just a question about the $14 an hour that folks doing community service, that goes to pay their fine or whatever, the fee for whatever it
Yes,
is.
that's credited against at the rate of $14 an hour, which is the statutory rate.
Okay.
And that
And
goes up
that counts
periodically.
toward the revenue generated for the courts?
No, that's not revenue at all. That's just, if somebody owes $500 in fines and they don't have a job and they can't pay for it, well, what are our options? We're gonna throw them in jail because they didn't pay? That's not an option. So at least it makes them have to do something, to have to pay some sort of consequence for the crime they committed, such as the criminal speeds. There's a lot of people that do criminal speeds that do community service as well.
So it's not actually a dollar that's distributed or?
No, there's no dollars coming into the city,
Okay.
but it's a way of handling those cases. It actually saves us money in the long run, because what some courts do is they find somebody in contempt for not paying, and then they sentence them to $50, a day in jail for every $50 that's owed. So if somebody owes $1,000, you're gonna sentence them to 20 days in jail. We have to pay as a city $84 a day to house them for those 20 days in jail. So that's $1,600 that it would have cost the city. Instead, we're saving that money, and the people are still being required to do something as a consequence for their actions as well, too. So it does save us from that. I mean, it's not revenue coming in, but it's on the bottom line. It saves us from expenses that we otherwise would have paid. So that's a big savings to the city as well, too. So
Good, thank you.
Tess?
90 hours a week, oof, man, that's,
hope I can get it down a little bit now that we're getting fully staffed, but
I would think you should, yeah.
my wife says I'm a workaholic. I guess I maybe am.
Yeah,
But I try to work hard for the city, and this is where I wanted to be, and I told you I wanted to work hard at this court, and I'm doing it. So,
We appreciate that.
Jess?
Yeah, Judge, just a curiosity question. The last chart or so before this page, you increased from 2019 the collections of fines over $400,000. That's just in 3 years. What are you doing? Are you beating them with a stick or something?
no, we're actually holding people accountable. Before I came, the judges that were here, they came from Mesa, and Mesa doesn't really enforce fines that much over there. So what they were doing is if someone didn't pay their fine, they go, okay, let's just put it on a restitution lien. Well, that only works if someone sells a house in the future or tries to sell a car in the future. Then we collect some revenues here and there from that. But what we do is we do what's called an order to show cause, and we tell them to come to court on a certain date and explain to us why you haven't paid your fines like you're supposed to. So a lot of people, when they have those kind of court dates, they go, oh, I guess maybe I better pay. I don't want to get in trouble. So you get some revenues coming in from that. Sometimes they come and then they try to give us their excuses, and when their excuses are insufficient, sometimes what I do is give suspended jail sentences, and I'll tell them if you don't want to do 5 days in jail, 10 days in jail, 20 days in jail, whatever it works out to, you're gonna make your payments on time. And we try to make sure that it's payments that they can afford, and we always offer them the option of doing community service as well too. So, it's actually, and then the other thing too is before I got there, the staff wasn't letting the prosecutor know when people weren't paying their fines. So now we're directing, which is under the statute, I've directed that they be notified whenever someone's not paying their fines when they're on probation. So he files a petition to revoke probation. So that puts some pressure over their heads too, that if they don't want to possibly go to jail time for violating their probation, maybe you might want to think about paying. So we have a lot of people that come in and pay off the whole amount. We just had one person today that, it took a couple of years to try to finally get things out of them, but, when the prosecutor filed their petition to revoke probation after we let them know that they were behind on fines, he brought in $312 today, and he got his probation to get terminated because he paid his balance in full. So it's just a matter of holding people accountable and trying to make sure that you get as much revenues as you can. I'm not going to get revenues by increasing fines because we're not a revenue generating court. People are treated fairly, like on the excessive speeds. It's the same fine for everybody. I don't care who you are, what you do in life, and if you can't afford to pay the fines, you can do community service. But on those kind of cases, we're going to treat everybody the same. Everybody comes in with all their excuses. I know a lot of attorneys hate my guts because they're used to, taking a $2,000 retainer and going to another court and getting them signed up for defensive driving school. Well, I'm sorry they don't get to look like heroes to their clients, but I'm here to try to, do what's right for the city and try to make sure that the special enforcement zone is actually enforced, and we try to cut down on fatalities in the city. That's my hope anyway.
Well, I want to say personally, thank you, and thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate the support of Mayor and Council. Everyone on here has been very supportive, and I appreciate all the input. And as I indicated before, I'm always an open book, and we're always transparent. Anybody needs to talk to me about anything, come talk to me.
Sir, will you tell your employees thank you too,
Yeah.
from council?
Thank you. We appreciate that. They also appreciated when you came in and talked to them too about the fact that you want to make sure that they stay here long term and they get treated right in the future too. And I know everybody on this body has that same opinion too. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Presentation, discussion of RFP 23002, library shelving. Pam.
Good evening, Mayor Wilson and members of council. Pam Harrison, Library Director. And I'm here tonight to present to you RFP number 23002 for library shelving. Just a little bit of background and the reasoning behind this project. As you're probably aware, the library was built in 1986, and then in 2008, we had an addition to the building to make a total of 31,444 square feet. Our current shelving in what is known as the north wing, which is the old part of the building, is the original shelving, and it is in need of updating, as you'll see on the next pictures. Oh, maybe the picture after this. So our current shelving and layout is shown in this graphic. As you can see, the shelving is in vertical lines across the room, and the shelving stands at 89 inches tall. If you've been in that room, you know the shelving is quite tall and the lights descend from the ceiling. So there is not a whole lot of space between the light and the shelving, which makes the room quite dark. And as you'll see on the next pictures, with the color of that current shelving, it makes the room even darker. That room is all in a light-colored wood, that tends to make the room seem darker as well, since there aren't any windows in that room. The shelving occupies about 86% of the room, and our desire is to make that room more open and more inviting. We would like to include some seating in that area, and I will show you where that will be in this proposal. So this is the current shelving. It is 7 shelves tall, but we are only utilizing 5 of the shelves. And you also see that we are, in some instances, not even using up half of the shelf space. The picture to the right shows that there are some shelves in front of the 86-inch tall shelf, or 89-inch tall shelves. Those ones are approximately 65 inches tall, and this is more to the liking of what we would have for the new shelving in that room. So the shelving in the last picture that of our current shelving is a terracotta. We know this because we have a staff person who's been on staff since the original building was built. Terracotta is not a fashionable color anymore, and the color we are going for now is a retail gray. And you might be able to see it here from the podium. And we are choosing this color because it actually is a perfect match to the shelving that we have in our Mountain View room, which is the room where you walk in by the fish tank. The picture on the screen is not the exact shelving that we are requesting, but it is very similar. It does have 2 sections to each unit. So there would be 10 shelves on each side, and it is double-sided. So there would be shelving on each side of the units. You can see that all of the units in the layout are in even numbers, going anywhere from 2 to 6 units long. And the great thing about this shelving, too, is that it would be on casters, which will make it movable. So in the future, if we have needs that change, we're able to change our layout of the room. It's hard to see in the picture, but there are different areas for different types of materials. Some of the shelving will be for print books, some of it will be for DVDs and Blu-rays, and some of it would be for audiobooks. You can also see in the open spaces where there's green writing that says, I can't see what it says, but it says seating of some sort. So our desire is to have some soft seating in this area so that people can come to the stacks, they can browse the stacks. If they see something that's interesting, they're not quite sure if they want to check it out, they can still sit down, take a look at it, peruse it. Currently, that isn't really an option with the way our shelving is laid out, and we think this would make the room a lot more open and brighter. The shelving would be 66 inches tall for the shelving, and the casters would add another 6 inches, making the total shelving height 73 inches. And unlike on the picture, there wouldn't be that big steel arch at the top. Instead, there will be canopy tops to prevent dust and other contaminants falling on top of the collections. So this is more what we are expecting for the product, just that it would be a steel end caps. I think what is shown here is a laminate end cap. The steel would be powder coated with that retail gray color. It would be 5 shelves high, and then on the caster wheels. And now I'm going to hand it over to our purchasing administrator, Kimberly Helt.
Hi, Mayor, council members, Kimberly Helt, purchasing administrator. So for this project, we did a request for proposal. We issued the notice inviting the bids on November 3rd of last year with proposals due on November 30th. We received 2 bid proposals, one from AADS Office Solutions for the amount of $147,706 and one from Arizona Office Furnishings for $562,438.48. Staff reviewed the proposals for technical ability, qualifications, experience, proposed solution, method of approach, and pricing, and AADS Office Solutions was deemed the most responsible and responsive bidder. So staff recommends that the contract be awarded to AADS Office Solutions in an amount not to exceed $162,476.60, which does include a 10% contingency fee. And then the funds for this project are in the current fiscal year budget, and they will be paid for with the American Rescue Plan Act, so ARPA funds. And then, are there any questions?
Council have any questions?
Your Honor,
Yes?
my question is, those two quotes, those two bids are so extremely high and low. Is the low one actually realistic, or did you just go with it because it's the lowest? Or is the highest one so outrageously out of, what are they offering? I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem, you don't see bids
Right.
for over $400,000 difference between the two.
Well, first of all, with the request for proposal, we can't just go with the lowest bid. That's not how it works. It has to be evaluated as a whole. Arizona Office Furnishings also included in their base bids items that were not requested in the scope. So that is why it is more. So they didn't include them as optional fees. They included it as the total price.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, if I can, real quick, but can I add a
Yeah.
question to that? Even if you took out the options,
Even if we took out the
who would have still been the most responsible and responsive bidder?
AADS.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, so 6-inch casters, are these, this is exposed casters, or the locking mechanism, or are they retractable? Do we know? Have you seen the product you're receiving?
The only thing I have are some sketch pictures from AADS, and it just shows the caster, and it shows that it is 6 inches. It is exposed. I do not believe they're retractable. I did think that that was kind of tall, but I'm assuming the size of the wheel and then adding the stem or whatever to connect to the bottom of the shelving, it must be about 6 inches.
Okay. And you know, it's got, you can lock down the casters, because you got 6-inch casters, that's going to be very
Yeah.
easily moved.
Yes,
Be
they
able to
are
move.
locking.
Okay.
Anyone else? So it's going to be done on the consent agenda next meeting, or what's,
I do have a question, Madam.
That's correct, yeah.
well, my question is, what we doing? Are we doing them? Because I don't
That's
see a
correct.
motion.
Yeah, it'll
You're on.
come back in 2 weeks on consent.
Okay,
Yeah, so this is just we'll bring it back on consent.
okay.
So my question is does the bid include removal of the old shelving and disposal?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation, discussion, and code of conduct. Conflicts of
No,
interest.
Mr. Mayor, we have one before that.
Whoops. I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Sorry about that, Heather.
Yeah, Heather, she doesn't want to sit through my presentations, so.
I probably still will, Joel.
Presentation, discussion, and agreement with Riddle Painting for exterior weatherization of the City Hall. Heather.
Sorry, it was moved. Heather Hodgman, Administrative Services Manager. So tonight, we're going to talk about City Hall weatherization, but within that, we're actually going to do a facelift to our city building with a painting aspect to it. So we're going to kind of combine everything together. So to give you a background, the last time our City Hall was painted was back in 2014. We did seal the cracks then, and we did do a lot of repair on the stucco. One of our largest areas that we had was over here on our gates in our HR building. There was probably a crack about that big. So that was repaired. Thank goodness it's still staying just fine. The repair is still there. But we did repaint everything. We did all of the exterior painting on the buildings, the window frames, the doors, all of the metal that's around City Hall. So that was done back in 2014. So the issues we've had is rain.
water dripping into our building. The major areas that it's actually focused on has been city clerk's office for the majority of the time. We've gone through there's a balcony where by the mayor's office, by Matt's office, there's a balcony right there. And below that area is the city clerk's office, the area that the deputy is around. It leaks there, so water's constantly dripping when it rains. So we have gone and flooded that balcony a couple of times to kind of see where the water's draining to, and we can't find it. We've also recaulked around the window frames, around the doors. It's not changing anything. So we decided back in 2021, I believe some of the council members were here, we actually redid the roof over this whole area, and that hasn't stopped it. So we're trying as much as we can to prevent it, try to figure out what's going on, find out where the leaks are. We've had to do nothing but replace ceiling tiles in the city clerk's area. This has now gotten to the point that it's moved to the development services conference room. So it's now leaking. So the spreading of the dripping of the rain is getting a little bit further. So we found out actually when we get hit from the east, our building on this side gets hit where the city clerk's development services, the rain starts dripping in. So the rain on the east side we're not happy with when it comes in, because then we get rain dripping in. So our building maintenance is frantically trying to make sure we repair things and clean anything up. So around October of this last year, we brought in Riddle Painting. We actually asked them to come in. What's going on with our building? What's happening? So they did something that's called a RILEM tube test. And what that is actually a test to look at how our surface absorbs water. And so they put a test into one of our small little cracks that we have and squirted some water. In 20 to 30 seconds, the water dissipated. It went somewhere. We don't know where it happened. So the wall actually absorbed that water pretty quickly. So that was the indication that it's the stucco. The stucco is the one that's having the issue. It's not the roof, it's not the windows, it's not the doors. It's actually the stucco material that's on the outside of our facility. So with this agreement with Riddle, this is the scope of work that they're planning on doing. So they're gonna clean, pressure wash everything, all of our exterior, the masonry, the wood, the metal, everything. They're gonna do all the repairs needed around for any stucco repairs. They're going to remove and replace all the sealants and backer rod for the expansion joints, window frames everywhere. They're going to apply a waterproofing at the footings. They're going to prep and coat all masonry in the stucco. They're going to prep and seal our stone veneer with a rain guard. Then they're going to, after that's all done, they're going to prep and paint our facility, and then all of the metal doors, the canopies, the wrought iron fencing, the gates, all of that is what's going to be included once everything's sealed up. So the paint they're going to use is an elastomeric product. So this product is a latex type product. It is thicker, it's rubbery, and it expands and stretches. So our facility will expand and contrast. So this product, so I mentioned to you the City Hall in 2014, we were painted. That was an acrylic paint, and the acrylic paint is actually only 10 mils thick. This is an elastomeric latex paint, and it's 17 mils thick. So an example, it's not quite, take out a dime. The thickness of a dime is just a little bit less than that thickness of a dime that will be applied. So this will act as a moisture barrier. We have been informed that Arizona school districts are actually being required to use this product now. It used to be used on roofs, but now it's being used on facilities. So it's a newer product that we were learning about, but we had found that out that school districts are now requiring it to be used as well. This is going to give us a 10-year warranty, so we'll have that with Riddle Painting. We will be able to repaint over it, because that was a concern of ours. We want to revamp our city hall, make it look beautiful again with the paint, that we can repaint over that issue. So I wanted to provide some pictures so you guys can see some of the areas and the damage of what we're looking at. So on the top left-hand corner, that's the roof over behind us, the finance roof over there on the second floor. Some of what the window sills are looking like, they're cracking. On the left is the stem wall. So that's at City Hall, that's at the Human Resources. So you can kind of see that they're gonna clean that off and put a coating over that. On the right, you'll see just outside your council chambers right here, they're gonna seal that one up as well around the light. So just kind of examples of what they're gonna be working on, what we see. I can give you probably 50 pictures, but I was trying to limit it down so you guys can kind of see the areas of what we're gonna be working on. So this is just pictures. I want you guys to see that these are the same color. We're gonna be using the exact same colors. We're not gonna change the coloring scheme. We're gonna use this. We'll be removing the lettering so that they can do the work, and the lettering will be installed back on. So staff is recommending entering into an agreement with Riddle Painting and Company and Coatings in an amount not to exceed $182,998.70, and we will be using the Mojave Cooperative Contract for this agreement. Any questions?
Your Honor.
Heather, so question, has the contractor, have they or will they be inspecting for any mold issues?
So we've been watching that as building maintenance, and we don't have any mold issues.
Okay.
It dries, the water dries, so there's nothing that sits. So we have been paying attention to that.
Yeah, that can be problematic if
Yes.
you've got mold buildup, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Aaron. Heather, so what happens after the first monsoon from the east and we have water again? What's Riddle gonna do?
We will be calling them back. I'm sure they'll assess what's going on, what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what happens when they throw their hands up and says, well, it doesn't appear to be us. So we're certain it is a stucco issue or stucco failure that is causing the leak, and it's not wind-driven or gravity-fed from another part of the roof, because I've gone out to investigate a sprinkler head leaking, and it came from 20 feet away, down the rafter, drips onto my pipe 10 feet away from the head, down the pipe, and then off the top of the sprinkler head.
We've actually had building maintenance. We've had other contractors come in and look into all the steel that's interior to try to track down the actual dripping. And that's where we were trying to do some troubleshooting ourselves. We brought a contractor in. They are trying to troubleshoot. But that's why they did a RILEM test, because that is where they had to figure out how it was being absorbed. How is our walls how is that working? So that's why they did that, in order to perform, to know that's what's happening. It's not coming in any other way. The warranty on our building, we've looked at that on the roof. Water's not coming in there either.
And
So we've
Heather-
had several contractors out here.
Heather, can you also address the warranty in this
Oh, sorry.
contract?
Yeah, it is 10 years. So if anything happens in those 10 years, we will be calling them out and they will be fixing it. We'll have a bond on them too. We have to have that so that their work is done.
Yeah. So the official diagnosis is our exterior walls is absorbing water, and is the leak coming from the ceiling in the other offices, or is it just coming down the wall and getting on the floor? Like,
It's actually coming in the city clerk's office, and development services is coming in through the ceiling, because they're on the first floor, and dripping down onto their ceiling tiles. But it's coming, the penetration's coming from the east side of the rain, coming through, the stucco through, and then hitting the ceiling and going down.
okay, so.
I know.
Next. I don't know.
Well, my question was the same as Daryl's, but I was wondering is, in this $183,000 we're paying to Riddle, if after they do all of this work, if there's still that problem, will there be additional fees to start tearing apart what they've done to fix everything to find what's really happening?
And that's why we have the warranty. They have to come back and do
Okay,
their
it's part of the
performance
warranty
and
then.
work on any issues. Mhm.
Okay.
So what you're saying is the warranty is not on the quality of the work, but it's a guarantee against leakage?
It's a guarantee that if anything occurs, they will come back and make any repairs necessary.
It's a warranty of their work.
Yeah, it's their work. It's, yeah.
So if we still experience leaks and we can prove that it is a failure of their work, that's where the warranty kicks in. If they can prove, like the folks on the
The roof,
ceiling,
yeah.
the roof, that no, it's not coming in because of that, well, then we'll have to address
So what
We'll
you're
call our
saying
other
is,
vendor.
if they can prove that they're wrong,
yeah, I guess.
then we'll have to pay somebody else.
But
Well, we'll have
they through this process, they're well aware of the issue,
Mm-hmm.
and this is our recommended next step forward, according to building maintenance and public works, and something we need to try to get fixed.
So they're not giving you a guarantee that the work that they're gonna do is gonna stop the leak into the city clerk's office?
No.
Sorry, I was like, everyone
Yeah.
was answering. I apologize.
Can you state the question again?
Yeah, repeat that.
So Riddle is not giving you a guarantee, or they are giving you a guarantee that the work that they're gonna do, that we're gonna pay them to do, are they telling you that this work will stop the leak into the city clerk's office?
That is the understanding, that it will stop any of our issues that we're having.
Because Heather, they're addressing the absorption problem.
Correct.
And if it happens to be a different issue, then that's not what they're addressing, although they will go around and caulk around windows and doors and light fixtures and things like that. But the primary target here is to, cover the stucco with the anti-absorbent latex thick paint to make it so it doesn't absorb through any longer.
Correct.
So in kind of reality, they could, if it should happen again, like, well, the problem, if not, you're not absorbing anymore, but you're still leaking, so it could be a different issue. We'll address that issue, but it's not necessarily covered under warranty. I get they use that Rylan test, and so they found out that it is have some absorbing sort of, nature to it. I mean, I'm just curious, does it bring itself out into the building afterwards, or is it just?
It disappeared. They didn't know where the water went when they did the Rylam test. And in 20, 30 seconds, it was gone. It wasn't a long tube or water gushing in. It was a small test, but if the stucco wasn't gonna absorb it, it wouldn't have taken it within 20 or 30 seconds as soon as they shot some water into a small crack. So that's their 100%, it's a stucco issue.
Okay. All right. So when it was stucco was originally put on, so let's say they didn't put a vapor barrier around the building before the stucco. And that's an issue where you would have to tear the stucco out if you want to put that vapor barrier in there, so you don't have these moisture problems. So if that's not there, and even with this, do they feel like that this will still just solve that problem?
I actually don't know what was installed when the building was, Brian, if that was, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I wouldn't know
no
that.
one really
so
would know, but just
They didn't mention that, what you had said that was before the stucco was done. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, generally when
Yeah.
when you're in construction, you put vapor barriers, so if there is moisture that gets in between, like the paint or the wall or things like that, that vapor barrier protects it. And if that, at the original build, if that wasn't put in at the time, that could explain some of the problems that they're having. But they're not taking off the stucco, putting in a vapor barrier to see if it is or is not there, and then redoing the stucco, they're just covering it with this material.
Correct.
Okay.
New vapor barrier.
Exterior vapor barrier.
Yep, exterior vapor barrier.
There's so much.
Anyone else? Okay, this again will be,
This will be on consent for April 18th.
okay. All right, thank you. Presentation and discussion of code of conduct, conflict of interest law, open meeting law, preliminary procedures, and public records law. Mr. Joel.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Where would you like to start?
Yes,
Yes?
wherever.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, I will start with the code of conduct. In a way, that's the easiest one because, and Matt, can you put that up?
Yeah, what are you looking for?
It's the first one, it's code of conduct.
Okay, do I need to, you didn't have it open?
No, I.
Okay, let me get to the agenda.
And anyway, to give you some preliminary on this, the council, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, created this document. And they actually asked me to draft it. I did. Mine was originally 12 pages long because I took it from different cities and towns and counties. And they didn't like the length. So they shortened it. And so this was for that particular council. This is what they wanted. So over the years, the only thing I have changed on this is the revised date, and I didn't change any of the content. So this has been what the council wanted for itself, the boards and commissions. So I could go through each one, but I think everybody is familiar with this. I think all council members are. But essentially, this is something you can change if you want to in the future. You can put on a future agenda. We can talk about it. If there's certain things you don't like in here, we could certainly do that. Not to give more homework for Bryant or me, but this is your document, and this is what you expect of yourselves and the boards and commissions. So you act in the public interest. That's pretty obvious what you're supposed to do there. You comply with the law. Professional conduct is basically, is your impartiality being questioned? That's the question with that one. And that came from a legal ethics one, actually, from the state bar. Due process, that's pretty common sense on how that's supposed to be done. Be respectful to people, be respectful to staff, come prepared for the meetings, turn off your cell phones. Back in 2018, we used to have a paper in town, and so there was something called letters to the editor. So that's why that's in there. We don't have that anymore, but you do have social media, so that kind of takes its place in a way. Keep control of the meeting, which is the mayor, that's the mayor's responsibility. Advocacy, just because you're an elected official, that doesn't mean you lose your First Amendment rights, especially on your private time, on your own personal time. You can advocate for different things, different candidates. You can certainly do that. Also different referendums, if there's stuff at the state, you can express your opinions. Yes.
Getting back to that, using your influence, you said, we still have the right to First Amendment rights, right to free speech. And then, but if you're, I think I'm still a little confused. If you're, as a member of City Council, how do I not, if I'm in a situation where there are other elected officials or people that are campaigning, how do I say I am representing myself and not the city in whatever it is I'm doing? Apart from standing up, getting everybody's attention and say, just so you all know, I am just representing myself, not the city. How do you How do you do that?
That's exactly how you do it. Like, say this is now 2024, and we're in the middle of the election, or we're close to candidacy. Say they just turned in their nomination papers. In fact, it's about this time, isn't it? Next year, yeah. So what do? You say, well, if you support someone, you can certainly say, my name is Peter Heck, I support the following people. Now, what you shouldn't do is say, I am a council member, and I'm on behalf of the council, we support the following. No, don't do that. You can't do that. But you, as a council member, can support. You can do that. Now, people know who you are, obviously, but it's you taking that action that is the issue.
What is the consequences if that occurs?
If someone does use their influence to say, I am a council member on behalf of the city council, I
Or-
support
or-
the following
or-
people.
Yeah, goes out and supports a specific candidate. If I went and said, I'm supporting Kelly Townsend for Republican candidate for state of Arizona Senate,
If you
what
say,
are my consequences if I do that?
well, if you say on behalf of the council, that's bad. What are the consequences? Oh, you might get some public media over it. You might get someone who wants to recall you. That's a possibility. Are there any financial ramifications? Not that I know of.
Okay.
But you could be looking at a public attack. That's possible, or a recall.
Because aren't we supposed to be nonpartisan, right?
Councils, except for 2 cities, I believe, Phoenix and Tucson, have to run nonpartisan, meaning you can't have a D or an R or an I after your name on the ballot.
Yeah.
Correct.
And Joel, can you explain a little about what the code of conduct is and what it isn't in terms of enforcement?
Well, what it is, it's more of ethics. That's really what it is. You're supposed to be ethical, and these are the rules that keep you ethical. Essentially, that's what it is. Enforcement, there is no real enforcement in this document. Some cities have tried that, and there's been an argument in courts on whether it's even enforceable. Either whether someone can be censured in public, for example. For charter cities where they have their own, basically their own constitution for only limited things, they might be able to put something in their charter that says, if you do bad things according to our code of conduct, we can censure you, meaning publicly censure you. Some cities do that. But they can't say, okay, you're no longer a council member if you violate rule number 4. You can't do that. That's up to a judge. That's up to lawsuits in the courts. There's only certain things that can vacate a council slot, and that's under Title 38. And code of conduct is not one of them. Committing a felony, obviously. Not living in the city limits. You all have to live in the city limits. Even when you're running, you have to live in the city limits. So that causes a problem. If you get elected and you weren't, that could be a problem. And it was for a past council member.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got caught, he quit.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so we continue on. I'll just mention this one, the gifts. It's still $25. Can you believe that? That's, out of all these years, it's still $25. That's considered under state law a gift. Anything over 25 and over is like, okay, you can't take it.
That's like a pack of gum.
You know, you think, you're right, and you'd think, especially marijuana flavored gum or marijuana gum, but you would think that, with inflation, that's going up, and I haven't seen that, so no legislator wants to attack that. I don't know why. They don't want to even try that. Meeting distractions, we've kind of already talked about that. Talked about influencing elections. Communications with litigants, this is an important one. So if the city gets sued, and then you get a call from the litigant saying, hey, how do you like my lawsuit? I just served you. You shouldn't be talking to that person. And if you do talk to that person, it's possible you will get subpoenaed, you'll get interviewed, and You don't want to go through a deposition, believe me. You do not want to go through a deposition. And if you're acting out of your scope as the council member, when you're talking to that person, if you do that, you may not be covered under Southwest Risk insurance. There's a possibility that they will not cover your any kind of damages if a jury finds you guilty or liable. So be careful talking to litigants. You should not be doing it. No elected official should be doing that once the city is sued. Criticism of staff. Did Rudy leave? Yeah, he did. Well, I say Rudy because Rudy and I have talked about this over the years. He's, of course, the planning manager, and he staffs the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so not too recently, but in the past, there have been some criticism over staff. And he and I have talked about that, and it's just not professional. You should respect them for their position. And if you don't like their staff opinion or their staff briefing, you can say you don't, and you say why. You can disagree. But Rudy and others have been here many years, and you should respect that. Okay, I think we're doing the legal training now because that's what you all wanted to do. And I think that's it for that one. Any questions? Okay.
I have a statement about that. The last one you just talked about, criticism of staff. I see where you're coming from, but, I mean, all because they've been here a long time doesn't mean they're never wrong. Doesn't mean they don't do things that they shouldn't be doing. The purpose behind this whole entire council is to represent the people and act as sort of an oversight committee over the staff. Not that I disagree with the Section 11 saying, you know, don't criticize these people. They come in, they work hard, they do what they need to do. But, and I can respect that too. But to blanket that, to make every one of these members saying, doesn't matter what's been going on, they've been here a long time, you need to respect that, and end of story. I disagree with that. I feel like people, I mean, just as much as any one of us could be wrong about something, any staff member can be wrong about something. And if it takes someone from the outside looking in to see that, then I feel like that's just what it should take. So that's my personal opinion on Section 11.
Well, if I could clarify then, if you'd like.
Oh, I wasn't clear?
No, for me.
Oh.
If I could clarify. I wasn't saying just because they have a certain position, they're always right. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can disagree, and maybe you got elected because some people said, hey, this director does this, it's bad. Okay, and maybe that's why you wanted to run. Okay. Well, that's really a management issue. Sorry, Bryant. But this is the council form of government where you rely on your manager. It's a manager form of government, I'm sorry. And you rely on your manager to handle things that you have been reported to you. And that's how that should be handled. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
All right, Matt, if you could go to the conflict of interest, which is the next one. I hear people snoring. Is this pretty, yeah, that's why Joe's leaving. Okay, conflict of interest. The object of conflicts of interest statute is to remove or limit the possibility of personal influence which might bear upon public officials' decision. The financial interests of public officials or employees must not conflict with the unbiased performance of their public duties. One cannot serve two masters with conflicting interests. So, I can sum this up pretty quickly. Do you have a pecuniary or proprietary interest in decisions that come before you? If you do, you have a conflict of interest. That's basically the sum and substance of the conflict of interest law. There are some exceptions, if they're called remote interests, And we've talked about this before. The most common one is when there's a class of 10 or more, where the example would be a church steeple. This is many years ago, came before council, and one of the members of the council said, hey, can I even vote on it? I'm part of that church. The answer is yes, they can, because there are 10 or more people in that class, and therefore it's not considered a conflict. Why should you care? I gave you the reasons. There's some criminal, there's some civil issues that could come up. There is a new case. This is an update, by the way. So there's a new case I added involving a board of supervisors in Cochise County, where there were 3 board of supervisors, and one of them decided, you know, I want to be the JP. So that person voted on himself to be the JP. You know, that is a direct conflict of interest. Plus, there were some executive session issues in that. It's a very fascinating case. If you want it, I will get it to you. But I couldn't believe how that went down. It was amazing. Going to what should you do if you think you might have one or you don't know? Well, you're protected if you call me, and then I will give you a written opinion. And usually the written opinion is when I don't think you have a conflict. That way you can vote on the item. You give me all the facts, and I will decide under the law whether you have a conflict. And if you do, you should advise the mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have to conflict off of that, and you should leave the room. Don't stay in your chair. You can go back and visit with Matt for a while. Don't be texting other council members saying, hey, you should vote yes on this one. I can't, so can you? You can't do that. And you shouldn't be influencing anybody even up to that point, because that's a conflict. Now, if the opinion that I write says, hey, you don't have a conflict, and you vote on it, and then it turns out, oh, well, maybe Joel was wrong, although Joel's never wrong, right? Right, Mr. Powell?
We just learned from our vice mayor that nobody can be perfectly right all the time.
Okay.
And I agree with that 100%.
Thank you,
And that we
Mr.
need
Powell.
to have constant care and watch over us on all matters. Thank you.
I was curious about that management council of government. Is it a 80-20 situation? Is it, what, 70-30? Are we 50-50? I mean, what's going on here?
Oh, thank you for supporting Mr. Manager. That was nice of you.
Comes the buck.
Okay, so if I was wrong, then nothing happens to you. Now, the action, that might be subject to challenge, but nothing happens to you, and you're not in trouble. And I think that is it, except, it applies to your relatives too. I always point this out, because sometimes that's forgotten. And so I'm going to read this one to you because what a relative is, which is on page 6, H, any individual within 2 degrees of kinship, including spouse, child, child's child, parent, grandparent, brother, or sister of whole or half blood, and their spouses, and the parent, brother, sister, or child of a spouse. That is the statutory definition in conflict of interest cases of what a relative is. Any questions? Okay, Matt, if you could go to open meeting law. So right now, we're having an open meeting. That's what this is. And what's the policy? That the bodies be conducted openly and that notices and agendas be provided for such meetings which contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. Why should you care? I gave you a bunch of reasons, especially if it's violated, because there could be some fines and some other bad things that happen. It applies when there's a quorum. So what's a quorum? For council, it's a majority, so that's 4 or more. And it's not just meeting here, it's also meeting on Facebook, email, text messaging. So that is how the Attorney General sees it. So if you're communicating outside this body, that's a problem. Or if you're communicating right now and there's 4 of you communicating saying, Joel's taking too long, that's a violation. I want to vote to stop this. Okay, go ahead.
Just clarify that at a city event, if all 7 of us show up on our own, we can do that as long as we don't talk business? It's not the, right? We're not illegal by more than 4 people being there, as long as we don't discuss city business.
Correct, because there's no agenda, and I'm going to get to that. However, if it's a social event, the Attorney General has made that exception. However, how do you regulate that? And if all 7 of you are sitting in a row and you're together and it's a social event, what are you talking about? That's what the public's going to see, and they're going to say, is that improper? Does that look bad?
That's perception.
And it's a perceptionist, and you do post for things like that, but maybe not all the time. Maybe it's a county event, and all of you went to it. Was that posted? Maybe sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So now what? Does that look like you're having a meeting, especially if someone puts it out there on Facebook? That's a problem, especially if there's a camera and someone has the image up on Facebook, and now it's a YouTube, and now they caught part of your conversation. And then you started talking about items, and all 7 of you that are there, or 4 of you. That's a problem. So we try to post things as best as we can, but technically, though, if it's a social event, no, that's not a problem. You can go. You should not sit together, though.
Yep, as long as you're not sitting together is the best thing. I've been advised to sit totally split up around the entire room where you cannot carry on conversations.
Especially if it wasn't posted, yes.
Yep.
Okay. If there's, we've had in the past emergency meetings, but not too often. And so you can't have those, but the public doesn't like those. And there's a good reason, because it looks like you're hiding things, which are not, but that's how people see it. So we try not to do those emergency meetings. Agendas have to be posted too. Agendas, sometimes I know some of you look at the agenda and go, oh my God, why is that title so long? Or the mayor's reading it saying, okay, this is way too long. Well, we do that for a reason, and that's because the law requires that it has to show what's reasonably going to be talked about. And you have to have the description so that it covers everything that's going to be talked about. That's why we do the agenda. It's something that the public sees it and says, oh, okay, Joel's here to talk about, I don't know, dog fees. And if I just put dog fees, that's not enough. You have to say amendment of Chapter 4 of the Apache Junction City Code, Volume 1. I mean, you have to say things like that in your agendas. They have to be specific enough to let the public know, hey, okay, I understand what's going to be talked about. Okay, I think, I want to talk about minutes because that has been an issue in the past where we had a deputy city clerk who did just a wonderful job in taking notes, and she had verbatim, almost verbatim, minutes. And yes, we had a system where you could look up something, and then you could look at the minutes. And yes, that was pretty convenient. But it also took a lot of her time. I think it was taking at least 75% of her time. And at that point, management decided, no, we can't waste time on that. If all we have to do is put the video out there, and that takes care of it. And plus, you approve the minutes. So what has to be in the minutes? What are you talking about? What was voted on? Who voted on it? And the public was there, whatever their names were, and generally, how did they feel about it? But you don't have to say any more, and what the vote was. That's all you have to do. And that was challenged some years ago, and the Attorney General was basically confirmed what I had been saying. You don't have to have verbatim minutes. I think executive sessions, we have some, we don't have a lot, but when we do, there's reasons for it. There's now 9 reasons why you can have them. And usually it's more litigation or employment contracts. I think, unless you want to talk about anything else regarding open meeting law, I think I'm done with that one. Any questions? Okay, we're getting there. Parliamentary procedure. This is how you conduct your meetings. That's basically what it is. That's all it is. In your rules, or I'm sorry, in your code, your city code says you're supposed to follow Robert's rules. And I don't mean Robert Schroeder's rules, but Robert's rules.
It'd run a lot smoother, Joel.
Yeah, I know. So what does that mean? Robert was someone who, from the 1870s, was an officer. And he basically he went to a meeting, it didn't go well, and then he said, I'm not going to ever go through that again. I'm going to create some rules, and he did. And so we're on the 12th edition now. So I think they were created more for fraternal and legislative purposes, so not so much local city councils. So sometimes they don't even apply. And when someone tries to apply Robert's rules to something you're doing, sometimes it just doesn't match at all. So you've left that up to the city attorney to make that decision, and that's what I do when something comes up. Do you have to be strict about it? Not necessarily, but you try to follow as best as you can. And so that's basically majority rules, give everybody a chance to speak. Don't cut anybody off. There's also due process things very similar to the code of conduct in there. And then how do you make motions? I've given you a list of how you do them, and they're pretty easy to do. And then the nomination of officers, which I have to say, your boards and commissions are doing a wonderful job when they follow this. And I think Rudy came up with a really good model, and they're being followed. So all your boards and commissions follow it for their officers. Any questions? Okay.
Don't see any?
All right, public records. Now, this is about what does the public do? And if they keep records on it, the public wants to see the records. It happens all the time. Jennifer basically gets a public record request, so what does she do with it? She has her staff send it out to the affected departments. The affected departments then have to compile whatever the targeted document is. And then if there's any privacy or redactions that have to come out, they have to be taken care of. And then at one point, they're given out. That's basically how a public record request is done. Why should you care, or why should the city manager care? Because the statute, and this is something the legislature messes with every 3 or 4 or 5 years. They like to play with the language because they get a legislator gets a complaint about whatever city saying, hey, they didn't give me my records. And so then they act, and then they pass laws that are awful, awful, terrible laws. So they have something that says we have to respond promptly. It's like, why couldn't they just pick a timeline? But no, they couldn't do that, of course. They couldn't ever agree on it. So promptly, what does that mean? You could look it up in the dictionary, and you'll find probably 5 different definitions. So judges have looked at this in different situations. So what does it really mean in effect for me? I get the public record request from Jennifer, and say you have a stack that's like 1,000 pages. Does that mean I can just say, you know what, I've got other things to do. I'm going to put that aside. Well, no, that's not the law. The law is, if I could get to that stack and not endanger the city business or put it in some kind of situation where the city's going to lose money or otherwise is burdened, then I got to get to that pretty quickly. Also, if it's an overly burdensome, there's a way out of the public record request. But We don't usually do that because that causes problems and the law on that is not too clear what's overly burdensome. So promptly means get to it fairly quickly. I don't think there's a timeline, but I'd say within a week or two, and it depends on what has to be looked at and redacted. That's what that basically means. And if we don't do that, that's the worst part. About 2000, I think it was 2000, we had a nasty shooting where a kid was killed by a police officer. And so there was a settlement agreement. So Southwest Risk hires attorneys that aren't necessarily city attorneys. They don't really know this law. And so at the time, that case, the defense attorney for the city entered into an agreement with the parents of the kid, and then the press got a wind of it, and they wanted to see that agreement. And the attorney for that was hired by the Southwest Risk said, no, you don't get it. That's confidential. In the private sector, it is. Not in the public sector, because it's public money, and it happened to someone involving a public official, a police officer. So we went to court, and the city basically, it was Maricopa County, unfortunately. So the judge basically said, okay, city, you did not respond to this. You kept it from this press. They have a right to see this. You are liable for the attorney fees. And that was, at the time, I think it was $36,000. So the city risk pool had to pay that. And they didn't like that, and then they jacked our rates up, I mean, that's how things work. But basically, act promptly and only reject public record requests when you absolutely have the legal ability to do it. And you have a reason to do it, a really good reason. And there are some reasons. If you look at the miscellaneous case law, there's a bunch of reasons. There's a test where, is it in the best interest to give it out? Or does the public have a right to know? Is their right bigger than the right of the city to not disclose it? And that's a balancing test. Now that's any judge. You pick 5 judges, they're going to have different opinions about that. So you have to be careful when you actually use that law. It's the Carlson case. I think that would sum up everything pretty well. Is there any, we can charge fees too for every page. And also it could be a screen page too. That's how we do it. So like this page that Matt has up right now, if you want a copy of that, that's 25 cents. Well, you didn't print it out, so you shouldn't charge me. That's usually the response we get. Well, no, that's a page, and so we're transmitting it to you. You get charged for that. So you cannot charge for the time you look for it. There is some other law that says if someone wants you to do a research request, we don't have to do those, at least not yet. I think the law is starting to change on that. But right now, we don't have to do a research request. And we certainly couldn't charge someone to do it. That, I know, would probably be the law, even if we were mandated to do it. There are some exceptions. For example, body cam. We get a lot of those, especially in the criminal prosecution area. And to give out body cams, there's certain rules. You have to blur out certain things, because if you don't, like for the officer, for example, you have to blur out the officer's face and also any children in it. And if you don't do that, you are subject. The city is subject to liability. There could be privacy things involving a license plate also. Someone figure out the license plate, they could find out where someone lives, and then they go and do harm to that person. So there's now, and we couldn't charge, by the way, for any of that. So I think there's a bill, and I don't know if it failed yet. I don't know if it's going to fail, but there was a bill that allows us to charge a discovery fee for that. I know the county or DPS got theirs, I think about a year or 2 ago. So we need to get the same because it is expensive to do. The chief will tell you it's expensive to do this, especially for body cam disclosures. Any questions? Well, thank you for your time. I think I did that fairly quickly, but We could have gone on for more, but I don't think you want to.
Nope.
So thank you very much, and thank you, Vice Mayor, for asking this to be put on the agenda.
You're welcome.
Okay, we don't have, do we have any council direction to staff? Nope. Okay, call to the public. I'd like to remind everyone the call to the public is a courtesy and not required by law. It's a time for the public to express requests, communications, comments, and suggestions. Requests to speak forms must have been completed and handed to the city clerk before the end of the city manager's report. All issues will be presented in a professional manner without personal attacks. Under the open meeting law, which we just found out, the council cannot engage in discussion on issues presented, but may respond to criticism and may direct staff to follow up with the speaker directly or place the matter on a future agenda for council discussion. There's a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. And I have 3 requests here. Mr. Schroeder.
Good evening. My throat is bad again. 2444 West Virginia Street. I'm informed that at the moment we have no animal control at all. At a time when I'm having major problems with dogs just in my street, getting loose. A woman went down to the little boy's house and grilled him on how he could not contain the dog in his own yard. That's assault. And I'm working with Chief Pulley and Mr. John on it. But as of yet, we haven't found a call where the mother called the police yet. This smacks. The lady in question is has many problems. The one with the illegal fence. Anyway, so we need to get, like, ASAP. I assure you, you don't want somebody like me enforcing your dog laws. And I have a record of doing so, and I will continue to do so. So my advice is we need dog control fast. Our squatters and our garbage in our neighborhood is reflected also by the county's efforts to get engaged with these squatters out in the mining camp area, the BLM land. But once in a while we get them kicked out of here, they go out there. Wait 2 weeks, there's someplace in AJ. We got to do better. It's not just the police, it's not just the county, it's the manager's problem. They tell the chief, oh, don't worry about this, don't do that, don't do that. They do, because the officers tell me. They told us not to do that. This is a problem. Our managers are a problem. I've told you for years our managers are the problem. We have to get new managers. They're not doing it for us. They're only doing it for themselves.
Okay. Jeremy Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Jeremy Jackson, 1353 South Bel Air Road, Apache Junction. Guys, thank you for giving me time to come up. I want to thank you for giving us time to actually come up and talk. I know it's part of meeting and how everything's set up. But there's times whenever, even if I'm wrong, if I say something wrong, I want to be gone. I want somebody to move me off of this podium, out of the room, whatever I need to do. If I come in with regular First Amendment stuff where I'm going to talk and I need to take and have something moved on it, and there's reason for it to be moved on, and you guys can do something about it, that it's already been pushed up past a certain point, then I understand. But otherwise, even if I came up here and I had a grievance and I hadn't went through the right channels, I feel like it's empty words. Like we've lost our own time, like I've wasted my time and your time coming to this place. Some of our people that we've had as of late have, I feel like, have not necessarily just messed up their time, but also have called you guys out indirectly. And I feel like that's a violation of the public part of the hearing. So my thing is, more of anything, is I just want to see that even if I'm wrong, that you guys call me out on it, and anybody else that has something issue, that they haven't already went through the proper channels first. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Laborde?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have a problem with some zoning in...
Could you please state your name and address?
Tim Laborde, 2234 West Windsong Street. I want to put a steel building up on my property, and went through the channels, tried to get a building permit, and they sent me what was required. And I was looking at it, and it's like, you got to decorate the building 75% in order to put it up. So I thought, well, I want some clarification on this. I called the city planning, and he told me, yeah, because of my lot size, I have to do some decorative on my building. And I said, what do you mean by my lot size? He goes, well, those lot sizes in my area vary from, half an acre or whatever up. He goes, but your neighbor next door with a bigger lot doesn't have to do anything. And I'm like, so I have to spend $20,000 more than my neighbor because I got a smaller lot? I think they need to look at the zoning a little closer on that. I've called Mesa, Chandler, and they were like, we don't have anything like that. All we ask is that it matches your house. And it's like, really? And he said, yeah, we have no requirements on decorative. And it's like, so because I got a smaller lot, I have to spend more money than my neighbor that's got a larger lot? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we get some more information about that regarding the steel building?
Yeah, so we can definitely provide some background on the zoning there.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank everyone tonight, and I'll call the meeting to adjourn.